want some sauce?
Scene 1, Apple, take 1.
What is up, everybody out there in YouTube land? In this episode of Recipes for Those That Can't Cook, we are going to be making homemade macaroni and cheese. Of course, my dishwasher is going, so if you hear noises, that's what's going on. Now, typically, when you end up making macaroni and cheese, people think of macaroni elbows, okay? But you can really use anything that you want. And in this particular case, we're going to be using shells, okay? But you can use anything you want. You can use spiral stuff, you can use those bow tie things. Doesn't make a difference. Just pick a pasta that you want to use for it. Usually you want it to be a very small little pasta that you can scoop up with a spoon or you can stab with a fork. Even though you could use spaghetti for it, I wouldn't recommend that. Very first thing that I'm doing is I am boiling water for the shells or for the macaroni, whatever I'm planning on using, okay? And I want this stuff to come to a boil, and I need a big enough pot that it can hold all of these shells and stuff, okay? Because we're going to be making a considerable amount here. So I have a pretty large pot right here, and this is what we're going to be making the cheese sauce in. I have another pot that's almost the same size, that's what I'm going to be boiling the noodles in. And we also need a casserole dish because we're going to be baking this a little bit later on down the line. Okay, so let me go ahead and get this flame started. Now the first thing we need to do is we need to put some kind of fat inside here. What I'm putting in right now is optional, but it's going to be little pieces of bacon. There's a little bit of water in there from me cleaning this, but no big deal, okay? But I want to have a little bit of bacon flavor in my macaroni and cheese, so I just cut up a little bit of bacon and we're going to render that. Now if you're somebody that doesn't like bacon, ignore this step. And then what you want to do is you just want to skip ahead to the next step. During the time that this is rendering down, I am getting a stick of butter ready because I am going to throw a stick of butter in here as another one of my fats, okay? Now, like I said before, if you don't want to use bacon, leave it out, just start with the butter. And this is the kind of macaroni and cheese that is good to serve with things like broccoli, because you coat the broccoli in the cheese sauce. Even if kids hate it, they're going to be like, oh, I hate broccoli, but man, that's the best broccoli I ever had because of the cheese sauce. Even though there is a recipe I have for broccoli and cheese for kids that I haven't seen anybody yet that didn't like it. Kids will even ask for it, okay? It's all about knowing your business. Okay, so this has been browned and I've rendered some fat out of it, okay? And we can take this bacon out now, and we're just going to leave the fat inside here. Alright, let's add some more fat to this. So I've got my stick of butter I'm going to throw inside here. A little bit of olive oil. That's probably good. Now if you don't have the bacon fat inside there, you might want to go a little bit heavier on the olive oil, okay? And then the amount of fat that we're using is really based on how much pasta you're going to be making, right? This I'm going to be making an entire box, so this is going to end up being just about right. If you're only making half a box, you can cut back on that. So our water is boiling, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some salt inside here, decent amount. With that in there, I'm going to pour my shells or any other pasta I'm planning on using, okay? And at first it's going to want to stick, and it's going to also lower the temperature. So give that a second, and then come in here with your stirring device. Give it a stir so it doesn't stick to the bottom or anything like that, okay? And then here in about another minute, do the exact same thing. And what we want to do is we want to boil this until the shells are about 95% done. And we're going to stir this butter up. And the temperature right now is medium-low because we don't want this butter to burn. We just want it to melt right now. And it's close to that stage. And now we're going to end up adding some flour to this. And we're going to be making what is known as a roux. Okay? And how much flour? Typically it's 50-50. I'm going to say right about there is a good starting place. And this is going to end up making a paste. Okay? And after we end up making this paste, we end up having to cook this for a while. Okay? Because if not, it's going to taste like flour, and we need to cook that flour flavor out. Okay? I'm also using this as an opportunity to kind of clean up the bottom of the pan and get those bacon flavors mixed inside here. And then that's a little runny, so I'm going to add just a touch more flour to that. Maybe that. Okay? Now, this is going to end up being a much thinner roux than most gravies and things that you would find, okay? Because we're not trying to make a cheese gravy or anything like that. We're just trying to find something, we're just trying to thicken up our cheese sauce, because we need to melt the cheese and we need to thin it out, right? But then we at the same time, we need it to thicken up. Kind of funny how that works. Okay, now if you want to get creative, you can add things like garlic and onion and everything like that before you throw the flour in. You know, you can go ahead and saute that for a little bit in order to increase the flavor of this. Okay, I'm going to be putting in black pepper. It's going to seem like a lot, but that's actually about right. I'm not going to put any salt in here until later because I don't want to over salt this. But I do want that black pepper to kind of infuse with everything. I'm going to stir the noodles. Right now I am stirring the shells again to make sure nothing sticks. I'm going to turn the heat up a little bit on the sauce here. If you want to add a touch of heat, you can. In this particular case, I'm going to be adding just a touch of, this is a Korean red pepper right here, okay, which is really similar to cayenne, okay. And I'm not trying to make this spicy, but I do want to have just a hint of heat into it. Once again, completely optional. Completely optional. If you want to add any types of herbs into this, you can. Okay, we can also add that later. Like if we want to add basil or something, we can. But I want to cook this for just a little bit to get that raw flavor out. And also, if we start cooking this for a long time, it's going to start browning up and start having more of a nutty flavor. I don't really want it to be like that. I just want it to get that raw flavor out. If you're using a white cheese, that's something else that you kind of have to think about. You might want to go ahead and use like a white pepper instead of a black pepper. In this case, I'm going to be using the atypical sharp cheddar that is orange, and so we won't have a problem. But now we need to go ahead and we need to thicken this up, and this is when I'm going to start adding my milk, and this is going to start turning into like a thick gravy. If you want to add half and half, you can for even a thicker, creamier sauce. If you want to use, let's put some more inside here. That's probably good because the cheese is also going to end up thickening this. Okay, and if you want to, you can also end up using a whisk. Okay, I find though, because there's going to be so much stirring and everything like that, we don't have to worry about this stuff having clumps. Now this is not going to reach its full thickening power until it comes to a boil. Okay. And it's already starting to thicken considerably. Okay, so now we throw in the cheese. And I'm going to be throwing in about a pound and a half of sharp cheddar. And this will end up melting a lot faster if you grate it. But I'm just going to throw mine in as cubes, and it'll melt just as well. It's just going to take a little bit longer, but I don't feel like spending a half an hour grating cheese, and I also don't want to have to clean a food processor. During the time that this is melting, if you notice that the sauce is too thick, you can add water to it. If you want to, you can add chicken stock. Oh, that's going to add another layer of flavor, right? Or you can add some more milk or half and half or whatever you want to in order to kind of keep the consistency about right. Once again, we haven't added any salt to this yet. But this is about a pound and a quarter. Yeah, maybe that's about a pound and a quarter of sharp cheddar cheese. And this sauce has become very thick. It's, as you can see, it's become almost the consistency of like a sausage gravy, which is too thick for what we need. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to add half and half to this. And the consistency we're actually looking for is about what it is right here. That's actually about the consistency that we're actually looking for. But this is once again going to end up thickening up. Let me stir up our pasta again to make sure it's not sticking. And I'm going to, see, it's already starting to thicken again. And I'm just going to keep stirring this and adding liquid to it until all the cheese is melted. And after the cheese is melted, I'm going to give it a taste, and then from there I'll know how much salt I need to add. And if I have leftover cheese sauce, not a big deal. I can use that for vegetables. I can use that for chips. I can use it for anything. Okay, but right now I want to make sure I don't run out from my mac and cheese. And at this point, we can also turn the oven on, about 325 or so, and we are going to. I'm going to turn the heat down on this. The shells are going to take about another 5 minutes, give or take. Yep, they're looking pretty good. I'm going to add a little bit more half and half to this. Thin it out a little bit. If you're in a jam, you can put some pasta water in here, if you're in a jam. Now, mixing cheeses is always a good idea. You know, if you have a bunch of different cheeses you're just trying to get rid of, throw it in. Throw them in, let them melt. See, we're starting to get that nice cheese texture. Just so happens I have some extra cheese. Let's get rid of it. Put mozzarella in here, put provolone inside here, Havarti, any type that you want. And it's getting closer to being melted. It's going to take maybe another few minutes. But that consistency isn't bad. That's not too bad right there. And if it's too runny, as long as it tastes good, it's okay. You just end up taking the shells out, or the pasta. You take that out a little early, and then it'll finish absorbing some of the liquid from the cheese sauce. Okay, that's if it's too thin here in the pot, because it is going to end up finishing cooking inside the oven, and the pasta is going to end up absorbing some of this. Okay, so keep that in mind. And the temperature on this that I have right now is medium-low, because I don't want this to burn. I don't want it to boil. You know, I just want this to thicken up, and I want all the cheese to melt, and that's it. Now, some sharp cheddars are stronger flavored than others. This one doesn't have as strong as a flavor as I was anticipating, so I'm going to end up adding a little bit more cheese to this, okay? And different brands of cheeses and everything are going to have different strengths of cheese flavor. So this is why we test it. This is why we taste it and see if it is right or not. Pasta in the rear is more than likely finished. I can turn that off. It's also time for me to add some salt to this. And we can just slowly start building up the amount of salt, okay? You don't want to over salt it. Then again, don't under salt it, because then it has no flavor. Tasting it tells me I need to add more salt. I'm going to add maybe another 1/4 of a teaspoon, 1/2 of a teaspoon, something like that. I'm also going to be adding a little bit more black pepper to this. If you want to add a little bit of herbs, you can. And I'm just going to be adding a hint of dried basil leaves. Okay, this is all optional what I'm doing here. A little bit more heat. That's the Korean hot pepper. This is optional. I'm going to put a little bit of garlic powder in here. Not a whole lot, just enough, just a hint of it. Because this is mac and cheese, I'm not trying to do anything too crazy. This is onion powder, and about the same amount. Just a hint, not a lot. We're going to stir it up. And that's going to end up giving this a huge depth of flavor compared to normal macaroni and cheese. It's going to taste like somebody actually knew what they were doing when they made this. I'm going to kick this up another notch too. Why not? Remember how I said you can use any cheese? I'm going to add Parmesan to this as well. I have a little bit of Parmesan Romano here. That is good. Let's get it ready. So we have our casserole dish here. I've got my shells that we're going to throw inside here. Scrape up any of the stuff that's on the bottom of the bowl. So we got a few loose shells over here. Now right now, these shells don't have a lot of flavor. They have a little bit of salt flavor, and that's about the extent of it, because that's what we boiled it in. And you'll also see that the shells are almost completely cooked, but not quite. They're really close, but not quite. And now what we're going to do is we're going to pour our cheese sauce over these noodles. That actually might be enough right there. And I still have some left over. Boy, this cheese sauce smells great. Adding those herbs and stuff in there. Ooh-wee. Okay. Oh, that beep means that my oven is good to go for as far as the temperature. Whew, man, this macaroni and cheese smells really good right now. Okay. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that we have enough cheese sauce to completely cover all of the shells, plus a little bit more, because this stuff is going to actually end up absorbing into the shells and becoming thicker during the baking process. And so right over here, I'm going to end up adding a bit more. Anything that's exposed up here is going to end up drying out. And that's no good. Okay. So now what we're going to do, we're going to take it a step further. We're going to take some more cheese and we're going to grate over this. This also would be a good spot to put another type of cheese that is not actually in the sauce itself. Little paprika. And this really is more for color than anything, because paprika, this small amount isn't going to really change the flavor too much. And like I said, my favorite thing to do, bam, these tomatoes, it's going to totally send this through the roof when it comes to the flavor. It's just awesome. People don't know if they're eating macaroni and cheese, if they're eating some kind of pizza. Don't worry about the liquid, but take it, pour that on. Man, this stuff already smells incredible, and it's not even baked yet. And now this goes into the oven, 325 degrees. Alright, so do you see how it's kind of boiling around the outside, and sometimes you might see a little bit of bubbling? This technically right here is done, but usually I want the inside to be bubbling a little bit more. Okay, so maybe another 10 minutes at this heat, and then I can turn the broiler on for maybe 5 minutes just to kind of caramelize the top a little bit, and then we're good to go. Now, you don't want to go ahead and serve this immediately because it's absolutely going to blister your mouth. What you want to do is you want to wait about 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and it's going to start solidifying a little bit, and then you can kind of cut it just like you'd cut lasagna, and for the most part it's going to kind of stick together just like lasagna. And after you have this, you're going to swear that this is the best macaroni and cheese you've ever had. And remember that bacon that we had earlier? I'm going to sprinkle a little bit of that bacon on here. Why not, right? Make sure every little piece. The object, I guess, is to make it as unhealthy as possible. Alright, now we're cooking with gas. Okay, so now if you want to cook a regular macaroni and cheese, this one is just through the roof macaroni and cheese. This is going to be like, holy crap, this is gourmet macaroni and cheese, okay? But if you want to make a regular one, okay, you got to stick to the basics. A, you have to have fat at the beginning. Generally butter and olive oil is good enough. Then you end up adding some flour to it and you make a roux. Usually a 50-50 is okay, but you want it to be a little less than. You want it to be a little runny, okay? At least for what we're making here, okay? For the amount that I made, you saw about how much I added for this amount. Plus I was able to make another casserole dish about this size of macaroni and cheese as well with the remaining cheese sauce. You put your fat in, you put a little bit of flour, you go ahead and you cook that for a little while. Good to go. Add your white pepper if you do not want to see the speckles. Okay. From there you start adding your milk. You add your cheese. Then you, after it melts, then you add salt until it maximizes the flavor. And then from there, just pour that right on top of your cooked noodles, about 95% cooked, 90%. Put it inside the oven. Let it bake for about 30 minutes or so, 325. Pull it out. Normal macaroni and cheese. Okay. Alright, so it's been about 10 minutes. Take the knife that I used to cut the cheese with originally. When I say cut the cheese, you know what I mean. Not the other type of cutting the cheese. But basically, starting this here, There should be enough fat in it that nothing's going to stick. Come around over here, grab this, and looky there. Looky there. That's what I'm talking about. And you see it's not runny anymore inside the container because the pasta has absorbed all of that. But I'm going to tell you right now that this mac and cheese right here, absolutely killer, man. But anyway, guys, that is that. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you click like, make sure you click subscribe. Check out my other videos, got tons more. But until next time, talk to you later.